All right, ladies and gents, welcome to Lectures with Liddington. Today we are going to talk about life, right? This is biology, and biology is the study of living things. So let's talk about, well, what does that mean? What does it mean for something to be alive? And when we talk about things that are living, there are 8 characteristics that are common to all living things. One little piece isn't enough to say, hey, it's living. In order to say that something is living, it must satisfy all 8 of these characteristics. You should be able to go through and check off boop, 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 all 8 of these characteristics in order to say that it is living. So if we look on the left-hand side over here, we have tigers, we have a mushroom, and then we've got some rocks here. Well, some of those are living and some of those aren't. So in this episode, we're going to talk about, what are those little check boxes that we can check off to say, hey, those tigers, they're living? Well, we can start with cells. All living things are made up of cells. So in this picture here, we've got a whole bunch. We've got some animal cells here. We've got some plant cells here. And here we've got bacteria. So those cells can be unicellular. So that's one cell. Or they can be multicellular, composed of many cells, like you and me. We're multicellular. Living things reproduce. So all living things need to make more living things at some point in time. And that can be done in 2 different ways. So there's sexual reproduction. So that's 2 parents. So these little puppies were made by a mommy dog and a daddy dog. Or there's asexual reproduction, and this is just 1 parent. Asexual reproduction is the way that unicellular organisms reproduce because they just make copies of themselves. Bing, bang, bang, boom. And they just continue to make copies. You don't get the genetic diversity that you get when you have sexual reproduction, which the puppies, the baby, and the plants would undergo. So they're going to have more genetic variation than, say, a bacteria would. All living things have DNA. So that is the genetic code inside of all cells that tells them what they are. All living things need to grow and develop. So over time, we have our plant here, starts out as a little sapling, and over time it continues to grow. We look at a lot of insects. Insects have stages, right? They start as just an egg, and then they have these adolescent stages before they make it to the point where they are an adult. So all those stages look different, but it's necessary to start from that small, simpler stage and grow as they develop. All living things need to obtain and use energy. And the term that we use for this, that obtaining of energy, is called metabolism. Metabolism is the process in which we break down materials in order to get that energy. So when we break bonds, we get energy out of that. All living things respond to stimuli. They respond to stimuli. A stimulus is the singular for stimuli. Stimuli is the plural. And that just means information from an organism's environment. So this could be things like your hand on a hot plate, right? You don't leave it there when you touch that hot plate or that hot stove, rather. If you touch the stove, you don't leave your hand, you pull it away. You jerk it away real fast because, well, it's hot and you don't want to burn your hand. Cringing, right, is an automatic response. Nails on a chalkboard is an awful noise. Most people cringe at that noise. That's response. That sound is a stimulus. That heat is a stimulus. All living things maintain homeostasis. And what this means, what homeostasis means, is a stable internal environment. We want to make sure as an organism that everything is consistent. We don't want to be too hot, too cold. We want our pH levels to be appropriate. We want levels of water. We want levels of different dissolved solids, like say salt, for example. We want them to stay at a steady rate. So your goosebumps over here, right? They are your body's response to try to stay warm. Sweating is your body's way of saying, hey, you're too hot. Let's try to cool down. Those are ways that your body is trying to maintain homeostasis, maintain that stable internal environment. And last but not least, living things evolve over time. The key here when we say evolve for living things is it's not a single organism that we're talking about. We're talking about a whole group, a species of organisms over many years will evolve. Darwin's finches are a great example. So think about the fact that they are all isolated on different islands. And over time, they developed very different beak shapes because of the food that was present there. If you go back in time and look at skeletons, horses used to look like that. Teeny, tinier than what we consider miniature horses now. And they had completely different bone structure in their feet and legs than modern days. This is a modern day horse right here. Over time, look at those significant changes. So one horse didn't grow from here to here. It was species. It was many horses over a long period of time. That group evolved, that group changed, had these different adaptations over time. So if you can go through all of those 8 things and put check marks next to them, bing, bang, boom, boom, all 8. If something has all 8 of those characteristics, then we can say it's alive. If it's missing any of those check boxes, unfortunately, we have to say it is not a living organism. So let's check it out. Let's talk about what is and isn't alive.